So Secret Invasion, the MCU's latest TV installment, just got done, starring Samuel L. Jackson, Emilia Clarke, and Don Cheadle, based off the comic book event of the same name. It's probably sitting at a 6/7 for me at the moment. I think in general people do have this feeling or this sense that the quality of comic book media right now isn't where it was pre-Endgame, and I'd say for the most part I agree. I think since Endgame, plotting, characterization, storytelling, and even visual effects have been a little bit off. There are of course exceptions. I think Wakanda Forever was great. I think Guardians Volume 3 was great. Across the Spider-Verse was fantastic. Disney CEO Bob Iger is quoted as saying that he thinks that the fan base is too spread thin in terms of their concentration. We're giving them too much content and therefore they're not able to really sit and enjoy new projects. And I kind of disagree. I think people are probably clamoring more than ever for better comic book movie content. I just think that the quality isn't there. Some of the creative choices have been, a bit strange. I'd say each Marvel TV show's kind of had the same sort of general pattern. A very intriguing first episode, a second episode that sort of insinuates there's going to be some real character development or some sort of interesting character reveal, a middle part that kind of meanders, and then a pretty abrupt ending that feels quite lackluster and undeserved or unearned. And I definitely say that's true here. The last episode is only about 30-40 minutes long, and we get a lot of stuff, we get the introduction of Super Skrulls, and I think because it was touted more as this sort of encapsulated espionage event, in comparison to the way it plays out, that's a bit of a misrepresentation. We're introduced to a lot of ideas that are within the universe, have been going on for years, but for the audience, they're only seeing it for the first time in this series. The amount of Skrulls that are on Earth, the actual plan to rehouse Skrulls, all these kind of things. For the characters, these things have been going on for a long time, so their motivations, feelings, reactions to certain things all make sense within the context of the world and the information that's being portrayed. For the audience, it might seem a bit abrupt. One thing that was really done quite well by Brian Michael Bendis back when the original Secret Invasion event happened was that there were seeds planted from the very start of his New Avengers arc. We didn't quite know what we were reading, what we were seeing, but upon reflection, you can see there are a lot of intentional decisions to create an air of tension and paranoia in the superhero community, which is obviously fully realized when it's revealed that Elektra is a Skrull. On top of that, with all the recent drama and crazy changes to the status quo with Civil War and the Registration Act, changing the entire dynamic of what it meant to be a superhero, and certain characters acting out of character, characters being able to defeat characters they'd never defeated in the past. When the Secret Invasion event was announced, the idea of who was and wasn't a Skrull and how long they'd been a Skrull for had even more fanfare. Here, it's a bit more encapsulated. The Skrulls have only been introduced since Captain Marvel, and they're obviously a lot different from the way they are in the comic. They're not an evil force, they're essentially refugees. So the motivation for this particular invasion is slightly different. The Skrulls kind of feel that they've been duped and used by Nick Fury, and this is sort of like the retaliation of the oppressed. And I will say, I think that the comic book Secret Invasion is probably the most disappointing event of all time, because the first issue starts off amazingly, and then you just have like a set of issues that are kind of like, meandering, where everyone's trapped in the Savage Land when we're still trying to figure out who's a Skrull, who's not a Skrull, and a very abrupt ending. So I guess structurally, the show and the comic book share quite a lot of similarities. Where they differ is the execution. Given the show's budget, the visual effects are pretty shaky. I don't think we were given enough time to sit with the Skrulls and sort of really see and feel their plight and their dilemma, and therefore understand their grievances. I really hope this will be the MCU's Andor. I've been pretty disillusioned with modern Star Wars, and Andor came out, a show I had no expectations for, and it really, really delivered and gave us the best Star Wars media we've had in probably the last decade. I don't think Secret Invasion had the same space to show that kind of political intrigue, character development, that wider game being played. I think this show really exemplifies the 6-episode format doesn't work, where Andor felt like a new, fresh adult take on a world that we're very familiar with. Secret Invasion kind of felt like more of the same from a universe that doesn't really know where it's going. And it's ironic because a lot of the things that happen in this finale particularly were made fun of in the She-Hulk series. I think the show didn't really tap into the idea of paranoia and tension enough. It would have been nice to have to and ah about who is a Skrull and who's not for a bit longer. Things move a bit too briskly, and we're not really able to sit with certain revelations. Would have been nice if Maria Hill got more of a platform to showcase her character and skill a bit more before she's unceremoniously killed off. I think Colby Smulders probably deserved a bit better than that. I thought Kingsley Ben-Adir did a really good job as Grannik. Particularly in the last episode, I think his dialogue was really, really good when he described himself as feeling like he was pimped by Fury. And I don't think they leaned into that idea enough. Having Fury, who is this, very shisty sort of character, this international man of mystery, super spy, all that kind of stuff, having this secret covert regiment of shapeshifting aliens to conduct operations across the world. I think actually tapping into that more and seeing that more would have added a layer or element to the show that I think was definitely missing. It'll be interesting to see how the MCU gets itself back on track. I personally am of the belief that I think the time of superhero blockbusters is done, being this mega phenomenon that makes $1 billion every time. I think that's over. They'll go back to being a bit more of a niche market for people like me who've been reading the content from when they were young or however long. General audiences won't be as enamored with this content as they have been in the past. I think we've reached that fever pitch where there have been so many films and so many things have happened. It's kind of impossible to demonstrate the ramifications of everything that's happened without feeling like what is meant to be a high stakes situation in a show or film then has this very, very easy resolution. Especially because we often know which projects are coming up and therefore which characters are going to survive and be in the next thing. It kind of takes away that layer of tension because we know that the Marvels is coming out soon and that we've seen Fury in the promotion for that film. He's in no real danger here. I guess Marvel Studios will have to think about how much they let on when it comes to the next project. When I think back to reading the original Secret Invasion comic book, as disappointing as the miniseries was, it led on to a lot of interesting things. Dark Reign, Secret Warriors, eventually The Siege. And those things made me look back on the event more fondly, and I'm not sure if that's going to happen here with upcoming MCU projects. So I would still recommend watching Secret Invasion. It's not bad. I think Marvel Studios needs to sit down with itself and sort of figure out how can we make our episodic storytelling more compelling and more engaging. It shouldn't be a thing of where people are coming and asking, do I have to watch this one? Is it important? Is it a waste of time? And it shouldn't feel like a waste of time for people that are invested in the universe, even if it doesn't attach to the wider things that are going on. We know the multiverse story is playing around in the background. As a diehard fan or a casual fan, I should be able to come in and watch things that aren't directly attached to that particular saga and still walk away from it feeling that this was a good story, regardless of how much it affects the bigger picture.